All right, now that everything is loaded up, we're going to go ahead and talk about some of these main functions. I'm going to make them very simple and easy to understand, hopefully, to make lives a little bit easier. So I'm going to start off with some of the main items and some of the main functions. Let's just talk about simple, all right? On this half of the board, so basically from the left half, the light gray half, this is all of your inputs. This is what's coming into the board. So on the stage, you have all the different stuff. You got drums over there. You got all those mics in there. You got those little mics that are there on that stand by the stairwell. You got a piano mic. You got choir mics. You got the keys mic or input. You got the guitar inputs. You got acoustic guitar. You have a second acoustic guitar. You have bass guitar. You have Ableton. You have all these different tracks and all these different things across the stage that are going into the board. That's why they're called inputs. These over here are the outputs or the sends. So we package everything up here, we kind of put it in a group, and then we send it places. All right. And then we overall send everything to the mains. So let's talk first about how to go through them. You can see fader control right here. We have different banks, B, C, and D. We don't use all 64 channels here. It's not routed that way. That's a too much TMI kind of a situation. But instead of having 64 channels long, which means this board would be the whole length of the desk, we can use the digital component to switch between different sections of it. All right. So this is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16 channels up to 24, channels up to 32, channels up to 40, channels up to 48, channels up to 56, and channels up to 64. So that's just a bank to consolidate the size of our board. All right. Over here, these are our sends, all right, our auxiliary sends. We did see some here. We'll talk about how that works in a second. Those are equated to this, and these are overall sends, all right. It tells you everything is labeled, right? Kick drum, snare drum, tom 1, 2, 3, overhead ride, side, overhead hi-hat, piano, keys, Ableton bass, acoustic 1, acoustic 2. That was a speaking mic, subwoofer. These are all our sends. So what are we sending to the subwoofer? How much sound is the subwoofer getting? How much reverb are we putting on the vocals? How much are we sending overall to the choir monitors? The drum mix, which is the Avioms, overheads, drum reverb, like how much drum reverb are we putting into the mix, all right? So that's really all that is. These right here are the sends for the in-ears. Ron has his set up in a stereo way, same as Sarah. All right, so how much overall volume? We really never touch these. These kind of stay at unity, which is like at 0. That's a good place to keep your sounds and your levels. The only thing we ever bump up and down is subs, a little bit more subs, a little bit less subs. Or reverb, how much reverb do we want coming out of the speakers? We don't really want the pastor or the speakers to ever sound like they're underwater. So we'll pull that back when people are speaking. Especially like in between songs when someone's speaking or praying, right? The worship leader just finished a song. We have a little bit of reverb to kind of thicken out the room and to make a little bit of the notes less harsh. You'll hear that as you play with that up and down. But you want to pull that down whenever someone's speaking so they don't talk like they're underwater. But again, that's how much we're sending to places. And then if you'll notice here, these sends match these sends. So send 1 is the subs. And if you go down here, output number 1 is, the subs. So you can see this bracket kind of plays with these little bubbles. And this is telling you that anything you select here, and if you play with these bubbles, that's what you're going to be sending to the subs. And that's just kind of like your master, right? So if I want kick drum in the subs, you'll see I have it turned up. All right, I wouldn't want the snare drum or the tom 1 or really maybe tom 2, but we don't have it on this drum set. Tom 3 for sure we want in the subs. Keys for sure. Ableton bass 100% we want those in the subs. That's really all the sub sound we'd ever want, aside from any sort of videos or any sort of like Spotify or tracks that are playing, okay, off of the computer. So you'll see that on the kick drum here, we have the subs on. We know it's on because that little bottom guy is lit up. If I push these, that turns it off. So the kick is no longer in the subs. We want it active, and we want this much kick drum, right? So we turn this up, we're sending that much kick drum sound to the subs. And then I can overall raise it or lower it. Sometimes people refer to these as bus groups. These sends are called buses. Think of it as in we put all these kids, specific things we want, in a bus, and then we make that bus go louder altogether or quieter altogether. That's a really good and efficient way to run sound. Not only do we have individual sends to do that, right? Send 2 is reverb. We really only have the singer's vocals ever in the reverb. Sometimes we want more, sometimes we want less. All right, again, they're all kind of set about the same level. So it's kind of just easy just to play with this guy up and down. All right, if I push 3, you can see that's the choir monitor. All right, we don't really ever want drums in the choir monitor. Piano for sure, a lot of the tracks we want. If I go to B, you'll see I want some of the singers in the choir monitors. And again, how much choir monitor I want. Again, most of the time we never touch any of these except for this guy. And then if you go through, you can press it. That's number 4. That's drum licks. Drum mix 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on and so forth all the way through. That's how those are routed. Okay. Also over here, we have the gain. The gain is a very, very, very mega important part of running sound. Gain is treat it like a fire hose or like a water hose, like a spigot on the outside. I always say that gain is like the spigot on the side of your house, right? So if you open up like the water faucet that's going to the water hose, if you open that up, you're sending a bunch of water to the water hose, but you have one of those cool spray nozzles on it, right? So you can kind of manually adjust with how much water you want to come out. If you turn up the water hose on the side of the house a little bit, like 20%, and you go over to grab your water hose and you're trying to spray out a bunch of bushes or, water the lawn, or let's say you're trying to spray off the side of the house to clean something, well, that might not be enough. And you might be squeezing that handle, but it's not sending enough power to the water hose nozzle. I want you to think of gain as the water hose on the side of the house. And I want you to think of these faders as the handle, right? As like the nozzle part of the water hose. So if I'm playing up here on sound and I'm going through stuff and I'm not getting a lot of kick drum here and I have it cranked and I have nothing really coming out, well, that's because my gain is probably not sending enough power to this channel. So what I would like to do is starting off right below 0 is a really good place to live, like I said. Right? And I might crank up the gain to where it sounds good in a nice, safe room. So I got some headroom and I got some low room just in case I need to make some little adjustments. All right. Again, this is like the little handle of the nozzle. This is the amount of power you're sending to the nozzle. The gain and input balance, that's what causes feedback and craziness to come through the speakers. So as long as your gain is set right, you should be good. And a safe rule of thumb is kind of live at or just below unity, which is 0. Okay, and you can notice all the way across the board, we're not really that much above it. All right, not really much above it. Okay, so that's that. That's gain. Again, we don't use pan, we don't use low shelter release. We talked about those sends. We talked about these FX returns. That's where we have our Pro Presenter audio. It's just how it's routed. There's nothing special about it. It's just where it lives. Nothing really to worry about with that. Let's go over here. We talked about the auxes. Again, those are our sends to in-ears and subs and specific things to specific places. Down here we have matrices. That's our online feed. Okay. Groups. This is really important. All right. Groups are what we send to the mains. So if you want to increase the volume of the drums, we'll talk about that bus system again, right? All these inputs right here, all 8 of these are the drums, except for piano. If I want to raise the overall volume of the drums, what I would have to do is I'd have to use 8 fingers and simultaneously push all of these up at the same time. That's extremely tricky and honestly silly. What we can do is we can package up all these guys put them in a nice little bus together, and raise the overall volume of the drums up or down. That is the better way to run sound. I'll talk about that more in a little bit later. But here we have the lead vocal. We have all the background singers, all right, handhelds, drums, instruments, lead group, that's usually lead guitar, choir vocals all together, all the other guitars like bass, acoustic, if there's a rhythm guitar player, right? You can kind of push all those up and down as a group rather than having to spread your arms across all these 16, 24, 32 different inputs and raise stuff up and down. You literally can mix your entire service just from right here. All right. Other things that happen, that's on the board. VCAs, we don't really use those either. Really, it's just these sends, right? Send 1, send 2, and groups. That's all we really ever play with. Right here, it tells you where to assign all the individual, where to assign all these individual inputs. So kick drum is assigned to group 3. Again, whenever you press select, it'll give you all the information you need about it. If you double tap it, it'll even tell you what information you have specifically for EQ, sends. It tells you everything like plain. I like to live on the board. This confuses me when I look at this because I'm not that tech savvy when it comes to looking at this. I don't like to learn two different things. I like to learn one thing well. And so I'm telling you what I know. So you can see here, the kick drum is assigned to group 3. And again, when I go down to groups, you can see group 1, 2, 3, that is the drums. So if I can assign snare drum, you'll see as I click snare, that's also in group 3. Snare's also in the mains. I don't know why. Tom 3, ride cymbal, that's phantom power. All right, those have to have phantom power. There's special microphones that need to have some extra power sent to them. Overhead hi-hat, piano. You'll see now piano just changed to group 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's an instrument channel. Keys, also group 4 instrument channel. Ableton, instrument channel. Bass, ooh, this is doubled up instrument, and this is also sent to 8, which is like our online. Which wanted some double bass and online. That's what all that does. Acoustic guitar, that's in channel 7, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the guitars line. I hope this is making sense as I go through. Acoustic 2, same thing, group 7. Electric 1, this is in group 5, which is the electric channel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lead group is in lead guitar. It's also on its own little flex channel. So if there's something that's like important that you are often needing to refer to, specifically like the electric guitar, because they play those little riffs in between songs and guitar solos and all that sort of stuff. That's why it's on the flex channel. It tells you right here, double press this, right? And then you can, whatever you select is going to go there, right? And then whatever you have it on, if you double press, that'll stay there. Red just means it's locked in. So yeah, group 5. This was a pastoral microphone that is in the lead vocals. All right. Same thing for Jeff. Jeff's in lead and he's sent to the mains, so we can bypass the lead group if we need to. If you're ever curious about what's in the group, you can do what I did and just select and see what we're in. A shortcut is double tapping, and it'll spill out. Just spill, double press right here. It'll spill out what's in there. So if you double tap handhelds, that's everybody in the handhelds for this individual setting. That's everything that's in the drums. That's specifically what's in the instrument line. That's what's in the lead group line, choir line, guitars line. So it tells you very easily as you click through, right? If you double press, you can see that you're on something, all right? If you double press it again or press it once, you go back. All right. So again, read a lot of these. They tell you exactly how they work. Stuff like that. That's a great place to hang out and live. Let's see. I showed you this right here. This mono thing, that's bypassing buses and going straight to the mains. So if you don't want to even deal with bus groups, if you just want to mix everything raw, straight out without using a group, which I don't really suggest. I suggest having a nice sound and then using them. All you have to do is live here. You don't have to flip. You don't have to move around. You have to dance a lot. You can literally just mix everything from right here. If there's stuff that you don't want in a mix, example, Jeff's microphone, or whoever's the speaker for that morning, you can just bypass it and just have it on its own. And whenever it's on, it goes straight to the house. One thing that's funny is the click. Click is not in anything because we don't want the congregation hearing the beep, doop, 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 beep, doop, doop, doop while the band's playing along to songs. That is routed to their in-ears, but we don't want it in the mains, so we don't have it routed to the buses or the mains. Okay, same thing, choir mics, you can see that's in channel 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, choir line. Again, you can always click and see where you are, double check where you are, or you can double tap and it'll tell you, oh, there's choir 1 mic. Yep, we are in there. And then you can just tap it once and it'll go back to normal. Okay. Over here, whenever you're on an individual channel, kick, snare, whatever, let's just go to kick, you can just look at the EQ from right here. You can look at anything you need to, right? And again, everything will correspond as see fit. This sort of stuff, all the EQ, all the fancy bells and whistles, I'll talk about that in a moment. It's not super imperative, to be honest. That's realistically just the icing on the cake. As long as the mix is good in the room, as in everything's balanced and everything's nice, you can hear everything, everything's full, that's where you start icing on the cake. All right. I'm just giving you the rundown about how to run it. Obviously, mains are over here. You don't really ever want to touch that. Kind of where it's at, it's going to be good. That's just the overall volume of the entire system. This right here, snapshots. If I go to the snapshot setting, again, this is just another function of these inputs, outputs, filing, snapshot, patch bay. You'll see it'll flip over to the patch bay. Plugins, inputs, outputs, filing, snapshots. So that's just another way of doing it. Everything that you do here, you can do here. It's just a monitor. It's also clickable. But again, I like to live in one area at a time. I don't like to be in 2 places at once. For functioning of this, snapshots again is how you set up your service. Here, you can click next and it'll automatically go to the next setting. I'll back up a little bit so you can see. This will jump down. That'll jump down. That'll jump down as I'm pressing the next button. If I hit previous, it'll go back up. And then you'll see, if I kind of back up some, sorry, I hope I'm not making a lot of noise. I have a mic on here. If I hit next, you'll see things will start to dance down here because things are automatically pre-saved to these settings. All right, like for welcome, we want microphones quiet, the speaker volume up, maybe some keys lightly in the background, maybe some piano lightly in the background, and it's already pre-saved that way. So you don't have to quick, oh no, he's got to speak and I got to turn that down. It just automatically mutes the stuff that needs to be muted, turns up the stuff that needs to be turned up. It's super easy. If you ever make some changes, if you double tap store, it'll save it. If you're ever going through something and you're trying to find, you want to skip a setting or something like that, you can click recall. So I can take this little knobby thing and just twist it and then it'll go up and down. Let's say I want to, hey, we're going to run back and we're going to repeat that first song again. Oh, okay. And I can click recall and it'll auto jump to that setting. Okay. If I want to save something, I click store. A little pop-up will show up. It says, are you sure you want to overwrite? So if you save something, you're going to delete however this was last saved and save it new. All right. If you've made some good changes, sure. Double tap store, it'll save it. So now it'll keep whatever changes you've made. If you're tweaking and things have been getting accidentally worse, you can just recall that setting again. And it'll go back to exactly how it was before you started playing. It's like a great clean slate. It's a good start over. I love that function. I believe that's everything about how this board functions. Let me go in now and talk a little bit more about how to mix and how to route stuff.